Moses Farrow was Mia's Korean-born adopted son. During the scandal, Moses was 15 years old. He grew up to be a family therapist, so he seems well equipped to reflect on his past honestly. In 2018, at the age of 40, Moses made a blog post detailing the painful truth about life in Mia's home, and it's a very different picture than the loving, triumphant home painted by the Vanity Fair articles. First, he clarifies that he's normally a private person, but is only speaking out because of the incredibly inaccurate and misleading attacks on his father, Woody Allen. Then he clarifies an oft-stated falsehood about Soon-Yi and Woody. Many people seem to think Woody is Soon-Yi's father, which only serves to vilify him for incest.
What are you?
I'll tell you what I am. I'm the paterfamilias.
People forget that Andre Previn was her father. In truth, Woody and Soon-Yi rarely even spoke during her childhood. More significantly, he recounts in painful detail, with numerous examples, a history of physical and emotional child abuse by Mia. What's unique about Moses' testimony is that he takes a long view. Moses believes this dysfunction is a generational issue that predates Woody Allen. It comes from Mia's own upbringing. According to Moses, Mia grew up in a messed up family with a father who tried to molest her, a depressive uncle who later killed himself, and a brother that sexually abused children. As a young adult, she had an affair that destroyed a close friend of hers. Moses writes, as a licensed therapist, he can see that Mia's own dysfunctional upbringing were the seeds of darkness that would later flourish in her own home, and would result in the abuse of Soon-Yi, Tam, Lark, Thaddeus, and himself. According to Moses, Mia was a domineering and rageful mother, who may have had good intentions in adopting children, but she did not treat them well. The adopted kids were dragged down staircases, slapped around, hit on their chests, locked in an outdoor shed overnight. And contrary to the Vanity Fair image of Soon-Yi being a dumb puppet, Moses points out that she was actually the most independent of the children. She was the least intimidated by Mia, which is why they fought all the time. Mia once threw a large porcelain centerpiece at Soon-Yi's head. She also beat Soon-Yi with a telephone receiver. And that's just the physical abuse. The emotional abuse would include humiliation and yelling, but also coaching, drilling, scripting, rehearsing, and brainwashing the kids. You had to agree with Mia's narrative or face her wrath. According to Moses, the gaslighting would follow a pattern. Now imagine you're Mia's child. First, Mia would accuse you of doing something you didn't do. She would say you misplaced the tape measure, or you drew the curtains when they shouldn't have been drawn. Yet these small transgressions would trigger Mia's rage. She would force you to admit it's your fault, and if you stood up to her or denied it, she would smack you around, until finally, in tears, you repeated her version of the story. It's only through Moses that we learn the truth about Tam and Lark's death. Recall that the Vanity Fair article said Tam died of heart failure and Lark died of pneumonia. Lark actually died of AIDS, and Tam killed herself after getting into a fight with her mother. According to Moses, Tam struggled with depression for much of her life, but Mia refused to get her help, insisting that Tam was just moody. Recall that Dylan and Ronan received child therapy to attend to their emotional well-being, but not Tam, even though she was depressed. Why not? Perhaps Tam's death could have been prevented if Mia gave her the same investment that Dylan and Ronan received. But instead of getting therapy, Mia would argue with Tam, and one of their arguments led to Tam's suicide by overdose. Tam was adopted in the midst of the scandal with Soon-Yi. Is it possible that Mia took out her anger on one Asian child on the other? Moses puts Thaddeus in the same camp, another victim of Mia's abuse. Moses corroborates what Dr. Susan Coates and Monica Thompson pointed out during the custody battle. Mia made all of the children hate Woody. She constantly referred to him as evil, a monster, the devil.
Satan lives!
This isn't new, but Moses claims she also told the children Soon-Yi was dead to us. Mia would rage about Woody and Soon-Yi so much in front of the other kids that Ronan, who was only 4, would tell his nanny, "My sister is effing my father." Mia seemed more intent on vilifying Woody and Soon-Yi than in protecting the mental well-being of her young kids. If this is true, is it a wonder that Dylan and Ronan would grow up vilifying Woody and also ignore their sister Soon-Yi? So much for trying her best to keep the family together. This is consistent with something Maureen Orth inadvertently pointed out in the Vanity Fair article. When Mia found the naked photos of Soon-Yi, she shared it with the other kids. One of those kids, Matthew Previn, shared it with his girlfriend, Priscilla Gilman, whom, by the way, is the daughter of Yale Drama School professor Richard Gilman and literary agent Lynn Nesbitt, and an honor student at Yale who has no relationship with Soon-Yi. Mia, Matthew, and Priscilla called these photos pornographic. Why would a mother share pornographic photos of one of her kids with the other kids, and let them distribute it, and let them talk about it to the press? There's only one reason: to humiliate, embarrass, and shame Soon-Yi. There's a term for that. Today we call it slut-shaming. And let me be very clear on this point. Mia distributed images of Soon-Yi that she considered pornographic without Soon-Yi's consent as a way to get back at her. That's called revenge porn. Mia Farrow engaged in revenge porn against her own daughter. Those photos belonged to Soon-Yi. Neither Mia nor Matthew had any right to distribute those photos without Soon-Yi's consent. That's sexual abuse, and some legal experts and advocates have defined it as sexual assault. Mia also humiliated Moses in a similar fashion. According to him, as punishment for cutting off the belt loops of his pants, she made Moses strip naked and stand in the corner of the room while his older siblings looked on. Exposing your child's naked body against their will to other kids is also sexual abuse. Apparently, one of Mia's traits is that she liked to parade the adopted kids' private parts in front of their siblings as a weird form of humiliation. In summary, Moses writes, "I was defeated, deflated, beaten, and beaten down. Mia had stripped me of my voice and my sense of self. It was clear that if I stepped even slightly outside her carefully crafted reality, she would not tolerate it. In short, it was not a happy home or a healthy one." Moses also addresses Dylan's accusations directly.
I was taken to a small attic crawl space in my mother's country house in Connecticut by my father. He instructed me to lay down on my stomach and play with my brother's toy train that was set up.
Moses writes, "It's a precise and compelling narrative, but there's a major problem. There was no electric chain set in that attic. There was in fact no way for the kids to play up there. Apparently, the attic was an unfinished storage space filled with a bunch of junk." Then he ends the blog by addressing Mia directly. "You once said to me, 'It's not healthy to hold on to anger.' Yet here we are, 26 years later. I'm guessing your next step will be to launch a campaign to discredit me for speaking out. I know it comes with the territory, and it's a burden I am willing to bear. But after all this time, enough is enough. You and I both know the truth, and it's time for this retribution to end." Moses' words seem like the product of earned wisdom and deep introspection. His account of the abuses in Mia's home are precise and measured. If true, considering what he went through, his account seems fair, not resentful. He doesn't, for example, call Mia a satanic evil person or a monster, and he doesn't say Dylan is a liar. He claims Dylan is just another victim to Mia's gaslighting, the same gaslighting the rest of the kids received. But just as he anticipated, Mia launched a campaign to discredit him. Mia, Dylan, and Ronan released statements disparaging his account. Mia calls him a liar, but she doesn't say what about his narrative is a lie. Dylan says he's a troubled person and that his account is easily disproven, but she too offers no evidence to disprove it. Why not? They could, for example, turn over the police report about Tam's death, or a death certificate. Perhaps a toxicology report would prove the Vanity Fair version of the death and show there was no overdose. Or they could show schematics or photos of the attic that counters Moses' description of it. Perhaps they would have a family photo of the children playing in the attic. Mia loved recording everything, after all. Ronan, for his part, says this is simply a campaign to discredit his sister and attack his mother. He writes, "After relentless legal scrutiny of my mother's parenting and efforts to discredit her, she was granted sole custody to protect us from Woody Allen." Okay, let's think about that. First off, Ronan conflates Mia's custody of the children with Woody's guilt. But it's not the same thing. If you go over the facts of the custody battle, as we have, you see that the totality of testimony and evidence shows Woody's not guilty of molestation. Ronan also says there has been legal scrutiny of Mia's parenting. This is not true. The fact is there has been no real legal scrutiny of Mia's parenting or her behavior. If what Moses said is true, Mia gaslit Dylan into believing a false trauma of sexual assault, not to mention forcing Dylan to relive that trauma for 3 days. That's child abuse. If she falsified testimony while making that videotape, and she submitted it as evidence, that's evidence tampering. Mia also pressured witnesses like Christy Groteke, Monica Thompson, and Mavis Smith to tell only her side of the story. That's witness tampering, and it could have resulted in perjury. And while Woody was investigated twice for the abuse of Dylan Farrow, Mia has never been investigated for the abuses of Moses, Soon-Yi, Lark, Thaddeus, and Tam. And let's not forget that distributing pornographic images of Soon-Yi without her consent is a crime. If Ronan truly wants to protect his mother, the phrase he should avoid is legal scrutiny. Ronan and Dylan offer up no new facts. If they did, I would have to reconsider the veracity of Moses' words, but they don't. By being offended, by calling him a troubled liar, they only offer incredulity and ad hominems, but no new data. Ironically, Mia said it's still flabbergasting that he can tell so many lies when the facts are readily available. She's right in one way. The facts are readily available. But when you read the facts from the investigations and the custody battle, they are consistent with Moses' account. There's a big irony here. Mia, Ronan, and Dylan are all self-prescribed advocates for victims of abuse. Their fame, their work, and their brand is based on sticking up for victims. Yet here they are, ganging up and attacking a victim of abuse. Claiming you care about victims while disparaging those in your own home is the very definition of hypocrisy.